What's going on, everybody? It's Triple Crown here with another episode of the Card Dealings Podcast. It's a podcast about selling sports cards, and it's a podcast about hitting the reset button. This is perhaps one of the most daunting subjects that I could possibly bring to the table here today, because starting over or doing a soft reset is a very scary proposition to many. Any kind of change is usually met with hesitation for most. For me, I'm no different. Lord knows that I have changed my collecting direction multiple times. Lord knows I've changed my business model multiple times. This is not what I would call a hard reset, but rather a soft reset. As you might have noticed over the last couple of weeks, I've been making some changes, particularly my look. I have a different name on the channel. It's shortened to TC24. I have a different color scheme, a new logo, and then I have some small tweaks that I've made to the content, more of which will be coming here in the following weeks. So today I wanted to walk through the process of why I made this decision and tell you about some things that maybe you don't necessarily know about. And if you're someone who is in a similar spot, whether it's as a collector, you find yourself at that collecting crossroads, or you're someone selling cards and you feel that change is necessary, let me walk you through how I arrived at my decision and what you might want to consider if you're looking at doing it on your own. You have to know my history, and anybody who's followed the channel for any length of time probably can understand this timeline, but I divide the history of my brand, if you will, into 4 phases. So the first phase is very short-lived. It is this discovery phase because really the world changes in March of 2020. We don't need to go into how that happens, but this is my discovery phase. This is the part of the timeline where I don't really know where I'm going. I'm not 100% certain that I'm going to pursue this full time, but I'm making some discoveries about myself, what I know, what I don't know, and really learning, am I capable of doing this? Do I enjoy doing this? Which leads to the second phase, which lasts for a very long time. This is your trial and error. When you are first starting out in anything, you are going to try things that will not work. It is almost a given. I think you're lying to yourself if you say, well, I got it right on the first try. Chances are you didn't. And this goes for collectors. Usually when people first start out and they ask me for advice, I say, try things out. See what works for you, see what doesn't, see what you enjoy, and wherever you end up is where you end up. But if you're not happy with where you're at, try something different until you're able to get it right. That's the trial and error phase, especially if you're trying to sell cards. You'll try different platforms. Maybe you go on a live selling platform and it doesn't work out. Maybe you start setting up at shows and it's not working out. It's different for everybody. It's going to depend on who you are, what your model is, and ultimately what your goals are. Discovering that in your second phase, or in my second phase in this case, is really essential to determining how you're going to grow this thing. And it might take some time. It's going to take a long time. As you can see here, it took me about 4 years to really get in a direction where I'm like, okay, I'm really pleased with where this is going. The third phase is kind of where I have been, which is making a name. This is when I started turning on the camera and recording at shows, going around with my GoPro and changing up just how I present things, fully leaning into what has become a massive part of my life, and that is the selling aspect of cards. I've kind of tiptoed around it here and there for several years, but really, it's a big part of who I am, and some people didn't like that change. There are people who no longer watch my content. I've sold out, or, oh, I'm only about the money or whatever. To me, those people wanted me to stay grounded. They didn't want me to expand, and you will find that as well, is that there will be some people who don't want you to get larger than you are. They want you to stay at the level that you are, and chances are it's because they are gaining something out of it that is threatened to be taken away if you begin to grow either your inventory or your popularity. Something to consider. And those are people that definitely don't have your best interest in mind. There's a few that come to mind with me. No names will be mentioned there. Um, and then it comes down to building a brand from there. You have your name out there, you have an idea of what your identity is, and you want to be able to build a brand. This also comes through the people that you're meeting, because I've met some really great people over the past few years who have challenged my ways of thinking. They have allowed me to dig deep within my core and really find out what is important to me. And that comes through, again, more of that trial and error. That part of it never really goes away. You're always going to be tempted to try new things, and change is a good thing. You risk becoming stagnant, and you risk what becomes a dying business, whether it comes swiftly or gradually. That is the risk you take. So, building a brand that can evolve and adapt with the times. And I have made some great friends, specifically in the past couple of years, that have really challenged me in doing so. And I greatly appreciate them. Some of them are probably listening to this, some of them are probably not, but I think they know who they are because I've expressed my gratitude to them. Those who have been able to encourage me to try out different things or challenge my beliefs and my thinking. Those are the real conversations that have given me so much value to what I am trying to build here, that I'm truly grateful to have had and continue to have people like that in my life. But now it's time to build this thing up. I think after all these years, I really have a true vision of where I want to go. And why I am making some of the changes I'm making now come down to these fundamentals. Really, four of them. I want to get back to the basics. I started doing this because I love cards. I absolutely loved collecting. I want to get back to that. I want to interact with collectors, people who share a passion with me, and be able to talk cards with them, be able to sell cards to people that are really going to appreciate them. More on that later. I want to align my brand with what my core values are. You might have seen in some of my newer posts on Instagram that I have a phrase on there that's called more than cardboard. And that's something that I really am trying to embody. It's based off of something that I saw. We'll dive into each of these topics here more in a minute, but that is becoming really a big part of my core. I've been feeling some burnout. Some of you have called it out in some of my most recent videos, and I think that there's some truth to that. There's several reasons for the burnout, and again, we'll dive into that. And then I want to just build this my way. I have a vision, and the only way to really see through that vision is to build it the way that I envision. Now, of course, I'm open to tweaks and suggestions along the way. There is going to be plenty of unsolicited advice passed my way in the years to come, I'm sure. And I will definitely take it into consideration, but I need to stay on track and keep with this vision so long as it is my vision. What are the basics that I refer to? It's a pros and cons list. As simple as it may be, that's the basics. Talking about what I love and what I don't love about what I do for a living. So what do I love about it? I love selling cards to collectors. I love the feeling of knowing that someone bought something from me that they truly appreciate. Not to get all sappy and emotional or personal with you guys, but cards have gotten me through some pretty rough times in my life. It's something that has given me something to look forward to on some very dark days. It's something that I find comfort in. And I'm not necessarily saying that that is going to be the same value that is provided to someone else through the cards I sell them, but it is nice to know that that card is going to bring them some sort of enjoyment, albeit it could be for completely different purposes, but that is where I find happiness. I don't necessarily love the soulless repacker transactions, as I call them, but really any of the soulless transactions where it's just a percentage here or a last comp there. I don't like that stuff. I think that's been pretty evident in my videos, but for the sake of reiterating it here, there you go. I do love discovering cool cards, seeing rare cards, seeing cards that I don't usually see every day, cards that you've seen on checklists, but you never knew if they actually existed, or seeing something that you've only previously seen on the internet. It's a different feeling seeing it in person or seeing it posted with the opportunity to purchase said card. What I don't necessarily love, though, is only buying the cards that are hot or the things that I can make a quick buck on. Are they essential? Yeah, in some cases they are. I have to consider that. I don't necessarily like that, but there's going to be parts of any job that you don't necessarily like. I do love meeting cool people and sharing this passion with other people who have that passion within this space. I don't necessarily like, as I call them, the broccoli kids, the ones that are just trying to take advantage of you. They're only here for the money. So be it. I don't necessarily love it, but they're not going anywhere. At least I'm not going to do anything to force them out, personally. They might lose interest over time. It is what it is. It comes with the territory of doing what I do. I do still love the show scene. I love being able to set up at certain shows. I love being able to walk at certain shows. But I don't necessarily love the overcrowded shows where you can't move an inch or you're feeling completely drained at the end of the day. I have to weigh those pros with the cons, knowing that all four of those things that I don't love, like it or not, are going to be part of what I'm going to do. They will creep into the aspects of my business. So, do those four things on the left outweigh those four things on the right? And to me, the answer is yes, they do. My core values. This is where I now have to really dig in. And I've identified what I love, but what do I want to bring to the table? What is important to me, and how do I extract the enjoyment out of those things that I love? Goes back to that connections, developing relationships with other people in the space. You don't have to be best friends with everyone, but I have made some people who have become really good friends of mine, people who I've joined fantasy sports leagues with, people who have come to my wedding that I just met through cards. I have people who, they've been over to my place of living, people who text me about life things. I know their kids' names. I know how things are going at home with them. Just stuff that real development of relationships with people that have become friends, and it's gone way beyond cardboard at this point in time. That's really important to me, is to build those relationships. Getting those cards that I care about into the hands of people who also care about them. Am I naive enough to think that every single card that I am selling is going into the hands of someone who really loves it? No, that's definitely not the case. I don't really know what the percentage of those people are anymore, because how long do they have to appreciate them for? How long do they have to keep them for? It's all very vague. And before I could give you an approximation of about how many people are actually collecting, how many are flipping, but how long do you have to have a card to collect it? What has to be your intention with it? I'm not here to gatekeep that. And quite frankly, me worrying about it, I think, is causing me more harm than it's doing any good. So, yes, is this the goal? Sure. But it might not be me who gets them into the hand of someone else. If they go into a repack and someone pulls that card in a repack and they love it, mission accomplished. It just got there a different way than I entailed. If someone is flipping it on their Whatnot channel and it's someone who's on Whatnot, and they have buyers who buy stuff that they think is really cool and it brings them enjoyment, again, mission accomplished. It just didn't happen the way that I thought it would happen. At the same time, I have to be able to make a living. So I need to make money doing this if I want to have a business, right? That's the goal of any business. As much as I love it and I would love for it to be kumbaya, it's got to be a living that is sustainable. It's got to be a living that doesn't force me to be paycheck to paycheck, so to speak. I don't need to be filthy rich. I'm not asking for a 7-figure salary paying myself to do all this, but to make a comfortable living for my family and the lifestyle that I wish to live, which really isn't all that luxurious. If you know me, you probably can guess that. And then have that flexibility. Being self-employed comes with some challenges, right? Because really the world is your oyster. There is nowhere that I have to be necessarily. Now, do I have to be at a show between certain times if I wish to set up? Yeah, the shows aren't just waiting for me whenever I want, but Outside of that, most things are open to me whenever. There is 24/7 access to being able to buy cards. There's 24/7 access to being able to sell cards. I can choose how much I work on one day or how little I work on one day. But I want to be able to maintain that flexibility to spend time with loved ones. And being self employed, you're going to work a lot of hours. Sometimes you're going to work some hours that you don't necessarily want to work. That comes with the territory and the freedom that you get. But being able to manage that better, I think will help me prevent kind of the next area that we're going to talk about, which is the burnout. So, why have I been burned out? A lot of these might be the same reasons that you might be feeling burned out watching this, or you may eventually feel burnout. Too many shows in too short of time is a likely cause sometimes, because usually a lot of my frustrations tend to mount during the summertime. There's a lot of times where I have 6 shows that I'm setting up at over the course of 8 weeks, and they're multi-day shows and they require a lot of time on the road, and it's constantly turning over inventory and getting it ready. I definitely prefer to move at a more methodical pace, but when opportunity knocks, I must answer. That is just what I have to do. And yeah, I have to kind of just take a step back and go at my own pace, even when it seems like it's a mad rush. Getting some external pressure. So, for those who don't know, I've been working with a partner over the past several months, so really since the start of the year. Someone who I've had a relationship with, and I won't go into exorbitant detail here, but a lot of that comes with when you are working with someone else, at really should be someone whose goals align with yours and the expectations align with yours. And I don't know if that was ever really the case fully with my former partner and I. There is times where I've just felt pressure to perform a certain way or do things a certain way in order to make sure that everybody's appeased. And in part of that, I lose a little bit of my identity. That's where that imposter syndrome comes in, and where you start to feel like you're just going through the motions. I'm checking boxes when selling cards. That passion starts to disappear. So all of this kind of comes together, and that's why it's tough to work alongside someone in that case and to not be in a position of authority. It's really tough, and it can cause some levels of burnout if those philosophical mindsets are not in alignment. So that's kind of what I've gone through. I think that's something that you have to consider too, is that if you are working with someone else, you have to consider, keeping that dynamic of both parties happy. And that there is going to be times where you feel imposter syndrome or you feel that you're losing a love for the cards. At that point, you just have to take a step back and reassess, because your own mental well being and your own happiness really should be a priority for you. That's why I have to do it my way. And I had made a video that has since been deleted talking about this direction that I was going to go in which I have pulled back. The reasons that I have pulled back, there's several, and they're not necessary for a podcast that's supposed to be 30 minutes in length, especially without proper context. But one of the biggest and most important takeaways from it is that I need to build what I am doing my own way. So, in order to do that, I have to check the boxes, which is what I was just talking about not wanting to do. But as your own boss, you kind of have to lay out some ground rules. I can't just freeball all of this. So I have to do what I need to do before I can do what I want to do. Essentially, I'm starting from a blank slate, if you will. I have my brand, I have built up an identity, and I have developed a skill set. So is this a complete rehaul? No, it's not like I'm going into a completely different industry or changing everything that I do. But in terms of just the vision and building things up, it is a bit of a soft reset. There is some shifts in mentality. So what I need to do in the beginning is start building up a larger bankroll with a inventory that allows me to have my desired margin and a higher sell-through rate. It is more of a volume game for me early on. but while maintaining that margin that I want to be at. And then as time goes on, I can start to gradually transition more into the things that may be a little bit more difficult to sell, but there can be big gains when you do so. Things that I am a bit more passionate about. But for right now, I have to focus on cards that maybe I don't normally look at 6 months ago. I kind of just let them walk away. But now, even if it might invite a crowd that I don't necessarily want in terms of a clientele to buy, even if it might mean that it's not the types of cards I necessarily want to have in my showcase, it's the stuff that I need to have in the early going. But with that, I can be more bold. If I am allowing myself more opportunities to buy cards and I'm not pigeonholing myself as much, I can be a little bit bolder and make offers that are a little bit more aggressive in my favor, meaning being able to buy at lower percentages, being able to stick to my numbers when negotiating, and not being afraid to let something walk because there is always another deal. If it was a rare card for my collection that I was worried I wasn't going to see again, that's a different story. And sometimes I take that mindset into my business, which is not good. I have to be able to separate those feelings because I'm not out here to build my personal collection when I am selling cards. I'm out here to build cards, an inventory of cards that people are going to want to buy and allow people to buy them at a price that is fair for both sides, in my opinion. I can acquire cards however I want to for my own collection any day of the week, but that's not really relevant to what we're talking about here. Part of that is focus more on being respected, not liked. This is one of the hardest lessons that I've had to learn over the years. I think part of it comes with just growing up, maturing, is I am less concerned about being liked. There's probably every single video that I post on there's at least one negative comment. And while that might have bothered me maybe 6 years ago, it doesn't really bother me anymore. Is it fun to get a negative comment? No. If the comment is really funny, then it is fun, in my opinion. But usually it's not very fun to get a negative comment or people disagreeing with you. It can be an uncomfortable feeling, but that doesn't mean that I have to change what I'm doing. I need to show a bit more self-respect, stick to what I know. And as long as I stick to what I know and what I do in a respectful way to others and show that self-respect, I think that is the key to success for me, and not worry so much about the perception because, hey, if you grow large enough, you will attract the following of people who want to tear you down. Look at any high-profile person out there or high-profile brand. It does not come without its detractors. That is how it works. So if I want to limit myself and shield myself from that, I'll never truly grow. And I'm going to not say the things that I want to say. I'm not going to be bold, as I said. And that is doing a disservice to myself. I think what I know better now than when I first started in 2019 is the business side of things a little bit more. Understanding what my costs are, understanding that, when you sell a card for $300, I'm not making $300 on it. That was something that I had to explain to my wife when we first started dating. Like, how much did you make at the show today? Well, I can make $5,000 at the show, but if I spent 5,100 on those cards, well, that's not really all that good, right? I actually lost money on the day. Not great. Yeah, sure, I have good cash flow in that sense, but that's not ideal. The ideal scenario is that was profitable. So understanding what margin I need to be at in order to pay myself and grow this thing at the same time, and to do so in a sustainable manner, and then be consistent with it. Be able to repeat this week over week over week, and be more consistent with my content. When was the last time I put out one of these card dealings? It's been a while. Being able to be consistent with that and put, a really solid schedule for myself together and stick to it, I think is one of the areas that I struggle with, and I need to be better with it, and I will hold myself accountable in that regard. So if you're someone out there who is looking to potentially change your approach as well, here is some things to consider about when or when not to do it. If you are feeling burned out, it is definitely time to look in the mirror, especially if it is a prolonged period. If it's a couple weeks of you feeling burned out, much less even longer than that, yeah, it's time to really sit back and think about if you need to make a change. If your model is not working, or you are taking losses repeatedly, and you recognize a pattern where it's specific types of cards or buys that you're making, then yeah, it is time to take a look at that and make a change because you can't afford to keep taking losses like that. If you are someone who is one of these drive-by offer guys where you are just out to get the best deal you can and leave scorched earth behind if you have to, and you are burning bridges left and right with the people that you are buying from, I would take a look in the mirror because eventually you're not going to be able to find people who want to do business with you. That is, I've seen it happen. You rub enough people the wrong way, eventually you're going to run out of faces to want to interact with. And then if you have ethical concerns, this happens more so like, let's say that you are working with a repack company and you get a peek behind the curtain and you don't like what you see behind the curtain. Well, it might be time to jettison from that plan. That is definitely something that if you cannot align ethically, if you're working under the umbrella of, say, like a repacker or a breaker, then maybe it's time to move from a different thing, or perhaps a certain platform that you might be on. If they enable a certain type of behavior, it might be time to ditch that platform and sell somewhere where you are more in line with their values. So I want to know what you think about all of this. If you're someone out there who is looking to potentially make the shift in what you're doing, or perhaps make a major change and jump in full time, I'd love to hear it. I hope that my content is helpful for you in that. That remains the goal of me, is to focus on that more than cardboard aspect, to focus on the education, and to take all that I have learned over the last 7 years, those who have challenged my ways and made me better at what I do, to really focus on what I do well and continue to master that craft. That is what the goal is here. And hopefully build something pretty cool along the way. Blaze a new trail and build something that really has not either been thought of before or never fleshed out in the way that I vision it. That is what I'm doing going forward. I will still be TripleCrown24, but you'll see me mostly branded as TC24 as I continue to grow this thing. That is all for me today. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. Again, would love to hear your feedback in the comments section down below. Until next time, take care, stay safe, and be kind.